Let's go to the next part here about our own interest, I guess, in what was going on. Let's put this up there on the screen. Turns out the U.S. actually, quote, suspected Prigozhin was preparing to take military action against Russia. The intelligence community leaked this to their favorite publication, the New York Times. They say the information was considered both solid and alarming because of the possibility a major nuclear-armed rival of the U.S. could descend into chaos. Yeah, you think? So American intelligence officials briefed senior military officials on Wednesday that they believed he was preparing to take military action against senior Russian defense officials. U.S. spy agencies had indication days earlier Prigozhin was planning something and worked to refine that material into a finished assessment. Unlike with the initial invasion, U.S. officials declassified that intelligence and then released it to try to deter Mr. Putin from invading. Intel officials kept silent about Mr. Prigozhin's plans. Officials felt if they said anything, Putin could accuse them of orchestrating a coup, and they clearly had little interest in helping Putin avoid a major embarrassing fracture in his support. Let's put the next one up there, please, on the screen. Also, Intel people leaking their favorite thing over to CNN. We've got that paragraph there. Intel officials actually had briefed congressional leaders known as the Gang of Eight earlier this week concerning Wagner movements and equipment buildups near Russia. Krystal, I'm curious what you think about this. I actually believe it was very irresponsible for them not to do the exact same thing that they did during the Russian invasion. I'll tell everyone why. This will sound bad, but Prigozhin versus Putin. So we kind of have to pick. Guess what? We have to prefer Putin. Prigozhin is a bloodthirsty war criminal, insane person, egomaniac. All of that applies to Putin too, but a little bit less. And whenever we look... look, you've said it before. You know, whenever you and I say we oppose the invasion of Iraq, let's be real. What are we saying? We believe a genocidal dictator, a brutal man should have remained in power. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I think that honestly would have been better off than the horrific chaos that ensued. You know, this is not a rosy and a nice choice that we have to make. And actually, some friends and I were talking in the middle of the coup, and we were thinking about prospective action. Realistically, what would have happened if Wagner got close enough to Moscow to gain control of the nuclear arsenal? Almost certainly, Krystal, we would have had to do, if anybody doesn't know about the Boxer Rebellion inside of China, the Western powers actually interfered and invaded or, inserted themselves in the situation in that Boxer Rebellion, specifically to prop up the regime that was more friendly to its trading relationship. My point being that there almost certainly would have been some international action should Prigozhin have actually gotten close enough to gain control of the Russian nuclear arsenal. In my opinion, probably would have been Beijing. Beijing probably would have come in and just been like, we're taking over. We're in control now. In terms of Putin, they would have propped him up like some Mussolini-type figure. But it could have been the West, almost certainly. These are disaster scenarios that we should have looked at. So, look, I mean, instability in Russia is good to a point. But when we get to the point where somebody's 200 kilometers away from taking over a nuclear arsenal, then I think it was very irresponsible for them to let this happen if they knew that it was going to, for the very reason that, what's going on in Ukraine is a sideshow in terms of our interests. Russian nukes in the hands of a genuine madman, that is a whole other level.
Yes.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Even the Pod Save bros were like, you can't cheer for this brutal war criminal, mercenary psychopath to take control. The first and the last thought has to be, what about the nukes? I mean, that's it. Like, I wish that we could take into account a variety of other factors related to human life and what the Russian people deserve and what the Ukrainian people deserve, et cetera. But when you're talking about a nuclear-armed superpower, the first and last consideration has to be, what about the nukes? And we know, with Putin, for all his many flaws, and not to say that this is any guarantee of what's going to happen in the future, we have not had a nuclear war.
Yeah. Hasn't used them yet, which,
Prigozhin?
Better off.
Wild card. We don't know, right? We have no idea. So I 100% agree with you. And the thing is, it's not like they would have had to. So you referenced they should have done what they did before the Ukraine war invasion, where they announced publicly, here's our intelligence and here's our understanding of what's going to happen, trying to forestall these events, or at least trying to prepare everyone to muster some sort of defense for Ukraine. You wouldn't have had to do that. I mean, they could have back-channeled to the Russians, the intelligence that we had. Now, it's possible that Putin actually knew what was in the works. You know, it is possible that
he... You don't have to be an idiot to know.
Right.
We've been looking at this guy for months, right?
Well, and, you know, in those leaked documents, the Discord leaks, they showed the U.S. had intercepted communications between senior Russian military leaders debating how to handle Prigozhin's constant demands for more ammunition. They knew they were pushing him to the edge by basically putting Wagner under Shoigu, which one analyst described as an absolute no-go for Prigozhin. So it's not like they were blind to the tensions here. It's not like they were blind to the risks here. So it is actually possible that they knew something like this was in the works. They just were unable to figure out how to mobilize against it. But yes, the fact that the U.S. decided to take this incredible gamble and cross their fingers and hope that you don't end up with this absolute madman and total chaos and Russia devolving into complete civil war, that they decided to just let this all unfold and let the chips fall where they may, I think it's wildly, wildly irresponsible. Now look, the gamble worked out for them.
Yeah, they're right.
Their hand is stronger, Ukrainian hand is strong, there's no doubt about it. Right. Ultimately, the way that this went down, with Putin being humiliated and weakened but still in power, is exactly the best case scenario for the Western alliance and Ukraine, who now faces a weakened opponent with some of their most hardened battle adversaries basically taken out of play. But there was no guarantee that this was going to be how this all shook out.
Absolutely. I think you're right. And, you know, look, I get it. It's actually a very tough situation if you're in that, because, you know, they're not wrong, which is that the Putin would have said, oh, like this is being orchestrated or whatever by the West.
They're saying that anyway.
Yeah, but exactly. Guess what? Immediately when it launched, they were like, this is a puppet of the West and all that. And it also, you know, it does raise kind of an interesting question, is like, well, has the U.S. intelligence community ever had any communications with Prigozhin? I mean, you know, I'm not going to rule it out or put it outside the realm of possibility. And that's another very interesting one as to like, what's going on here? Kind of reminds me of the assassination plot around President Diem in South Vietnam. But the point is that the results could have been horrific and disastrous. And it was, even though it was a tough situation and it is genuinely a tough call, if they knew about it and just did nothing, that was a choice by the U.S. administration. We shouldn't forget that.
Yeah. The last thing I do want to say on that point, because I think this is important, is do I put it out of the realm of possibility that the U.S. had some hand behind the scenes? Of course not. Of course I don't put that out of the realm of possibility. But I see people very confidently asserting that that's what happened here. And you can't just look at who benefits and say, oh, there must have been a role. Not everything is about us, right? Russia is perfectly capable of having their own internal strife and conflict that is separate and apart from whatever our wishes and desires are. So again, I would just wait and see if there is any evidence of such plots that emerge before you just sort of, you know, fly off down a rabbit hole and accept this as fact when there's nothing that indicates it thus far.
Yeah, are you suggesting that we should be responsible and wait for facts? I mean, I thought we were in the takes business. Anyway.
Crazy idea.
Yeah,
just putting that out.
Pretty wild. Anyway.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.